introduce you to a brand new baby. This is its first appearance at Twin Lakes, so I'd like to take a moment to introduce y'all to it. And it's in this bottle, if y'all can see. I had my first child Thursday. No, I'm teasing. Zach, where's that baby at? There we go. Now, what's his name again? Zane. Now, don't pull a Michael Jackson. Just get close. This is Zane's first Sunday at Twin Lakes, and we're glad to have him and his mama here. Have we got any other brand new babies? I can't keep up with everybody. Where are we at? Well, that baby's 6 years old. Where you been, Katie? This is his first day. Let's see this one. What's his name again? Kane? Any others? Any others? All right. Well, we're glad to have all of you, and especially all of you moms today. You know, Brother Tim Porter and I talked about this yesterday for a few minutes. Services like this is exciting and it's great, but on the preacher side, it's a little bit hard because you sort of are pointed in, I got to preach about this. Sometimes you feel like you're in a box and no matter what you preach, you've preached before or you've said, and it's hard. And you start thinking about Mother's Day, and there's several directions you could go. I could preach this morning on the story of Hannah. She was that unbelievable mother that gave her son Samuel back to the Lord. And Samuel became the great prophet of Israel. We could talk about Jochebed. Y'all know who Jochebed is? That was the mother of Moses. How she had intuition and hid Moses in the bulrushes, and God worked it out for her to still raise her own child when all the kids were being killed. We could talk about Naomi. Now, there's a tough one because that's really a story about a mother-in-law. That's all I'm going to say. Of course, you can always preach about Mary, the mother of Jesus. But this morning, I picked a different mother. One that, to be honest with you, I think it is my favorite mother story in all of the Bible. And I want to read to you this entire story about this mother. So bear with me as I read this. And we're going to begin in Romans chapter 16 and in verse number 13, okay? You ready? Everybody ready? Here we go. Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother and mine. Man, isn't that a great story? I said, man, isn't that a great story? I'm sorry to have took so long to read it and go through it and all that, but that's the whole story. I'll read it again. Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother and mine. What an amazing story about a mother. Now, the truth of the matter is to really get the story about this mother, you got to look a little deeper. You got to look a little further. You've got to be able, with biblical eyes, to read between the lines of what's going on here. I like this story. I like the story about this mother, first of all, because she was remembered. She was remembered. Now, I don't know if you realize this or not, but there's 1,189 chapters in the entire Bible. 31,172 verses in the Bible. And every single one of those verses and words was inspired by God. It was handpicked and hand-chosen by God. It was strategically placed with a purpose and a meaning. Therefore, because this mother took up one of those verses, here's what we know. No mother is forgotten by God. This woman was remembered by God. God set aside this precious space. In fact, John tells us if all the words which Jesus spoke were written, he assumed that the world itself would not contain the books that should be written. So there's a lot of important stuff out there that we've not even heard yet. But yet God found it important enough. He found this woman significant enough. He said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to save one of those verses for Rufus's mother. God remembered this woman. I suspect, let's be honest, I've heard, that oftentimes moms feel unnoticed, unrecognized, unappreciated for all that they do. And I assume that's right. I know I'm guilty of not sharing and saying and doing the things that I should all the time. In fact, I remember hearing about a man that come home from work, and when he walked in, the house was in just total disarray. There was clothes piled up in the laundry, the bathrooms were nasty, the dishes were still in the sink, and the kids were running around in their diapers, and he walked in, and he said, what have you done all day? And she said, well, when you ask me that every day, today I didn't. And that's the result. Mom's got a tough job. Well, I want you to know today, ladies, every dirty dish you've cleaned, every job that you've done, every kid that you've run, every task that you've had to accomplish, every heathen husband that's out there, all the stuff you've had to put up with, and you feel as though you're not noticed, you're unrecognized, you're unappreciated, that may be true to some, but let me tell you who it's not true. It's not true to God. God is taking notice, and He's watching, and He's keeping records. And who knows what He might have reserved for you. I like this story because she was remembered by God. I think it's important to notice that she was also remembered by the Apostle Paul. This woman apparently made such an effect on the Apostle Paul that he could not finish his letter without saying, tell Rufus I said hello, and don't forget to tell his mom I said hi too. Here was a woman that had an effect on arguably the greatest Christian that has ever lived or walked on the face of the earth, and she was remembered by Paul. She was the type of mother that made an effect on an important person. I like this story because she's remembered by God. I like this story because she was remembered by Paul. I like this story because I'm going to bet that before this sermon is over, you and I will never forget her either. I like this story because she was remembered. I also like this story on Mother's Day because not just because she was remembered, but because if you look closely, you can tell that she was motherly. She had that motherly instinct. You see, Paul, when he said, tell Rufus hello, and his mother also, Paul never questioned the fact that Rufus and his mom were still in contact. He never questioned the fact that there had been some kind of falling out. He never questioned the fact that Rufus had moved away and they don't see each other much. He knew that woman was going to be in Rufus's business to the day he died because she was his mother. Don't you ever tell your mother butt out. Don't you ever tell your mother to butt out. She's earned the right to be in your business. She was motherly because that's what moms do. Isn't that true? And it never ends. I'm 50 years old, and the other day I was getting gas, and I pulled up to the gas pump, and I thought, I need to call Mom, so I got my phone out, and I dialed it, and I'm getting the gas pump, and the pump ain't coming on, and I know Mom's fixing to answer, so I hit the button on the gas pump for the attendant. She said, "Can I help you?" And about that time Mom answered, said, "Hello." And I said, "Yes, can you give me 30 on number 10? She said, "Jeremy Short, are you at the horse track?" Butt out, Mom. That's just what moms do. I like the story of this lady because we can see clearly that she mothered her children, but she also mothered everyone else. Did you catch what Paul said? "Tell Rufus I said hello, and his mother, and mine." Paul recognized the fact that this woman, now she wasn't his biological mother, but she had so mothered him that Paul acknowledged her as being his own mother. Let me tell you what that tells me. Obviously, she spent a lot of time and put a lot of work into the Apostle Paul. She had spent enough time being there for him, helping him, correcting him, instructing him, and guiding him, all those things that Paul literally said, "I view her as my own mother for the way that she has mothered me." Where would the world be without godly mothers? Where would we be? Winston Churchill, Abraham Lincoln, Douglas MacArthur, all of them were quoted saying, "All of my accomplishments are a direct result of my mother." Now, them's three pretty important fellers. You think about Moses. Jochebed only raised Moses for 5 years, but in those short 5 years, she installed enough character in him to last him a lifetime. And God used him to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt into the promised land. All because of a godly mother. I like this story. I like it because we see that no one's forgotten. Every mother is remembered. I like this story because it bears out what it is that a mother does. They mother. They're motherly. I like this story because we also see that she was a called individual. She had a calling. She had an important job. Now, we may not know her name. We may not know all the details of her life. In fact, there's a whole lot more about her we don't know than what we do know. But let me tell you what we do know. We know that this woman had a major part on a big stage that changed the world. Changed the world. Well, Brother Jeremy, how do you get that? Well, I told you we've got to look a little deeper, so I want you to just flip over to the book of Mark, the Gospel of Mark, chapter number 15. Mark, chapter 15. We don't know a lot about her, but we know she had a major part in changing the world. Mark chapter 15, everyone there? And verse number 21. Jesus is on his way to Calvary. It says, "And they compel one, Simon of Cyrene, who passed by, coming out of the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to bear his cross." The man that carried the cross for Jesus, his wife is the mother we're talking about. You think she didn't have a big part? You think that she just left out of the countryside one day and all this happened and left and her life didn't change? Let me tell you, there's no question whatsoever that this woman had not spent her lifetime sharing with endless people about the events of that day. There's no doubt that this woman spent the rest of her life sharing with endless people what Jesus had done and what she had witnessed and what she had heard and what she had saw. There's no doubt this woman spent endless time talking to her two sons, Alexander and Rufus, about what they saw that day and what it meant and how Jesus came as the Lamb of God to forgive all the sins of the world. And son, it's important that you remember this because you saw it. There's no question. She sat with the Apostle Paul. And he said, Mama, tell me the story again. And he sat and listened to her tell the story of the one who died for us all. You think this woman didn't have a major part in who Paul became? You think this woman didn't have a major part in the world being changed? The Apostle Paul became the greatest Christian to ever walk the earth, and the woman that tutored him, the woman that mothered him, is the unnamed woman in Romans chapter 16. But you rest assured, we don't know her name, but God ain't forgot her. We may not know her name, but how she lived and how she treated others became a big part of what happened in the rest of the world. We may not know a lot of things about how she lived, but it's obvious that she spent those days teaching and sharing others about the love of Jesus and how she heard him from the cross say, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. This woman had a big part in changing the world. I love this story. You know, you may never know what part you might play in history. You may be mothering the next Billy Graham right now. You may never know what part you have in the big picture of history. If I asked everyone here today, can you name a U.S. president? Everyone that's at the age of accountability and Mo could name a president. If I asked you, can you name a king of England? I feel pretty confident in this bunch that by far and large, the majority of y'all could come up with the name of a king of England. If I asked you, can you name a Roman emperor? Now, I may be going out on a limb a little here, but I got confidence in you. I believe that by far the majority here could come up with a Roman emperor. Enough if you've seen Gladiator and those sort of things, you come up with a name. Or been to Vegas. All your gambling hats. If I asked you, could you name me one Viking king? That might be a little sparse. Mo's still trying to find Viking on the map. But the fact of the matter is I also would say that every single one of you here do actually know a Viking king by name. Harold Bluetooth was the king of the Vikings. He ruled Denmark and Norway from 958 to 986. He was such a great communicator that he was the direct reason that Denmark and Norway combined to come together. He communicated that and showed them the vision, and they came together, and they came together to form an enormous dynasty for over 300 years. All because of him. More importantly, he solely and directly was the reason Christianity came to Denmark and Norway. Changed the world. He changed the world. He brought Christianity to two separate countries, and a movement began there, and Christianity became predominant during those years. Over 1,000 years after his reign, there was a tech company in that area that created a new communication system. And upon its completion, they needed to come up with a name or a symbol. And to honor this great man, this was the symbol that they chose. Which coincidentally is Harold Bluetooth's initials. You never know what part you're playing in the grand scheme of history. You never know. And I want to tell you this morning, this is not a message just to moms. This is a message to all of us. This is something that we all need to take our roles and our calling very seriously. We need to leave here understanding the importance of being a better mom, being a better dad, being a better wife, a better husband, a better child, a better worker, a better friend, a better Christian. Because you never know what part in history you might be playing. Oh, Brother Jeremy, I'm a nobody. Nobody even knows my name. So what? The woman that mothered the Apostle Paul, we don't know her name either, and look what she did. Oh, but Brother Jeremy, I don't have kids anymore, or my kids are grown. But you still got your wisdom. You still got your abilities. Oh, Brother Jeremy, but I don't have a calling like that. How do you know? You might be raising the next Harold Bluetooth. You might be raising the next Apostle Paul. You might be raising the next Billy Graham. I want you to leave here understanding this. Everybody looking at me, everybody listening for just a second. You have the ability to change the world. You have that ability. Be sure that you take it seriously for what you do. Would you stand with me? Heads are bowed and eyes are closed. No one's looking around. No one's talking.